Two, one. We are live. Hello and welcome to PropTechBuzz, a business podcast on global PropTech, where we talk to PropTech founders, CEOs, and VCs from all over the world and learn from them how to build and manage successful PropTech companies. Today, I'm thrilled to have with me a special guest from India, Abhishek Prasad. He is leading PropTech innovation in India as the lead of Idea Labs from JLL. And I bumped onto his profile and I saw his title and the interesting work that he has been doing. I thought he would make for a really good guest, and that's why I approached him, and he generously agreed to be on my podcast. But before I officially welcome him and talk to him, I would like to make a plea to all my listeners out here. If you're listening to this content, please hit that like and subscribe button, because the more people like and subscribe, the wider is the reach of this content. I have got some very good, glorious feedback about the content about this podcast. So it only makes the world a better place if more and more prop tech people get to hear this content. We had some very fascinating guests in the past. We have some very delightful guests in the coming days. And talking about delightful guests today, we have Abhishek. Abhishek, welcome to PropTechBuzz. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much, Ravi, for having me here. Doing amazing. It's just started to rain here in Bangalore. I think it's setting up the stage for our conversation. So I'm doing really well. And thanks again for having me on your show.
Thank you, Abhishek. And you were also quite diligent. Not many of my guests uh, do a pre-call to prepare themselves. You called me, and we spoke about it, and we prepared the structure of this conversation. So thank you for taking this seriously as well. So why don't we get into the stuff directly? We all know about the JLL. In fact, so many founders have emerged out of JLL. They talk about the PayPal mafia. Somebody should write about the JLL mafia, because so many people have come out of JLL, from the management, from the executive at all stages, and they have built so many startups. And then there is a JLL Idea Labs, which also does the same, right? But I have no clue about what Idea Labs is. So let's begin by understanding what is Idea Labs first, its focus, its vision, and then we talk about your active role in the Idea Labs.
Yeah, sure, Ravi. That's a good start to our conversation. So Idea Labs is a 4.5, 5-year-old initiative, very specific to West Asia for JLL. When the leaders envisioned a role like this or a program like this, their intention was to see how we could tap into the knowledge of the startup ecosystem, right? While we ourselves are a 270-year-old organization, we have a collective intelligence coming in from experts across the board. We also have our own VC firm as well, JLL Spark. We also have our own technology firm, JLL Technologies. But the leaders always felt there's only so much we can do, right, in terms of investing or building our own products. So that's where Idea Labs originated. So our job is very simple. It's about seeing how can we match the problems that we see in the ecosystem and see which are those startups that can come on board with us, help us solve these problems for us, for our clientele, and then we could all create a better world for all ourselves. Yeah. So that's the short intro to Idea Labs. Yeah.
Help me understand the difference between Idea Labs and JLL Spark, please.
Yeah, sure. So JLL Spark is a venture capital fund, right? So we invest into startups. We've already done about what, $450 million in the past 4 years. Quite a few startups have joined us in that bandwagon. While that is what JLL Spark does, Idea Labs, we could look at it more like a virtual accelerator. We're not bound by regional geographical boundaries. So what we kind of do is we look at innovative startups from across the globe. So when I say that today we have startups from Israel, we have startups from London, we have startups from New York, Singapore, Hong Kong, Australia. So what we wanted to do was create a channel through which these startups could reach out to the JLL ecosystem. So we act as a go-to-market partner for these startups. We provide active mentoring because a lot of the times our startups are in different stages of their journey. So sometimes they need some support in terms of understanding the compliance, understanding the standards, or even driving value out of their offerings, right? So that's what JLL Idea Labs gives. It's like a platform where all the SMEs are on board, the startups come with their idea, they get to shake hands with all of these subject matter experts, understand what the product should look like, and then when we find that product market fit, Idea Labs becomes more like a go to market channel for all of these startups that we work with.
Mhm. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll come to the details about how it operates. What is your role there when we say that you are the lead for Idea Labs?
Yeah.
What is your responsibility there?
Yes. So today I'm leading Idea Labs for West Asia. So the beauty of Idea, so my role is acting as a thin layer across all our departments so that we're able to bring them together and um, see how we can have more and more startups join our journey. So that's my role here at Idea Labs.
Okay. Could you be a little more specific? What do you mean by the thin layer? Like,
Yeah.
are you
Yeah.
facilitating inbound players or startups coming on board? How does it work out?
Perfect. So we are a large corporate giant, right? So we surely have our own metrics. While we are a flat hierarchy, we do have departments within our organization. So Idea Labs is that one thin layer which works with every department. Could be your sustainability,
Got it.
could be your engineering, could be your maintenance, all of them together.
Right.
So the startups don't have to be moving around for all of this. So it comes
Got
to
it.
them on a single platform and they're able to access all of these
Got
services.
it.
Yeah.
Got it. Got it. Excellent. Let's now look at the functioning of Idea Labs. Okay, so there could be listeners who have an idea on PropTech, and they want to build their own startup. What happens? How do they approach Idea Labs, and what is the entire experience like from there on?
Yeah, sure. So while we have an open door policy for all the startups, they could reach out to us directly, either to me or to our organization, and they will be directed to me. So what happens once we see them is, so we have a 3I uh, framework or an approach that we follow, where we identify a startup. So it is two ways: either we identify a problem first and then we start scouting for relevant startups. The other way around is startups themselves approach us. So that's the identify phase that we call. And then what happens is this goes through a governing council. So we have a governing council with key stakeholders from different departments. Why this becomes important is a lot of the times innovation fails is also because you don't have enough sponsorship internally, right? So that's where JLL invests by putting its leaders on top of this program. So the leaders look at it from multiple angles, and then we inspect, and then we go through a incubation period, which is typically a 3-month gestation period, where it is reviewed, looked at from multiple angles, and then we build a thesis on top of it. We build our own point of view on top of it, and then we now validate and say yes, this is a startup that we want to work with because we are confident in the solution. I think we can add a lot of value to our clientele and our business operations. And then we start taking the startup across to our large ecosystem that we manage here in West
Okay,
Asia.
and what's the entire duration of this entire cycle from identifying the startup, governing council, reviewing it, and building the thesis? How much time does it take usually?
So it is typically a 3-month gestation period for this
Mhm.
entire process. That's where the startups get to speak to a lot to me, to my leaders internally. There are a lot of conversations that happen. So it's a
Correct.
typical 3-month journey before we kind of have some form of commitment of how we can take it ahead. Yeah.
Okay. So when we say 3 months, it is 3 months of gestation, as in 3 months of approval cycle. Is that how it is?
It is not just approvals, right? So we also have to look at it not just from approvals, but also trying to find a product ecosystem fit.
Hmm.
So that is why it takes about 3 months because we want it to be looked at holistically across the board.
Okay.
We want to
Okay.
understand how this is going to be impacting our strategy, our clients'
Mhm.
needs. So that is
Okay.
why it takes about 3 months. It's not just validations and approvals. It is more about understanding and seeing how this fits into the larger strategy of JLL as an organization and our large clientele ecosystem as well.
Right. So in this 3 months, the startups are actually engaging with JLL. It's not like they are in a siloed environment working with themselves waiting for the next step, but they're actually validating with
Yes,
you, and
yes.
eventually after 3 months they would realize whether or not this is a sound business model to pursue, isn't it?
No, that's where the 3I framework comes in. So when we identify and inspect, the governing council already decides that okay, this is something which we want to work with. But the
I
next
see.
3 months is about uh, filling in those gaps. So we understand by looking at the product at a very high level, we see okay, these are some changes
I
that
see.
we need to do to the approach, to the model, or to the offerings itself. Sometimes that's
Got it.
communicated to the founder of the startup, and then we agree on to it, and then we say okay, are you ready to put in that investment of time? We are ready to then work with you and see how you can add benefit to our ecosystem.
Got it.
So
Got it.
because we understand time is of essence for startups, so we don't want to keep them hanging there. So we quickly do our inspect and then move on to the incubation phase.
Got it. Excellent. And when you say incubation phase, how long is the incubation phase?
That is what takes 3 months. Yes.
3 months. Okay. And post incubation, what is the next step?
So post incubation, they become an active partner to JLL. So then our teams start taking it to our client accounts where we engage. We start using them to solve the problems that we intend to solve with them, and we start driving. So it's after 3 months you just start seeing if in a typical startup word we say that's the time when you start getting your money in the bank. You start getting orders, you start getting POs, so you start having fun after that.
Fun after. But these initial orders, POs,
Mhm.
are the customers that JLL's own clientele has, right? So
Yes,
the
correct.
startups don't have to look out or scout for it.
Uh,
But JLL itself has a huge network of its own clientele, and it finds the match there. Got it.
Yes, because we ourselves are the largest ecosystem. So that go-to-market partner is what we want to be for these startups.
Got
The
it.
reason we do that is when we realize that we as JLL strongly believe that the whole real estate space is at the cusp of transformation, right?
Mm,
A lot of real estate has to go through this transformation. Could be from technology, could be from a sustainability angle, could be from people and inclusivity. A lot of changes are happening in our industry. So
bro.
we believe that if this industry has to grow, we also have to create a symbiotic relationship with the ecosystem, and one of it is the startup ecosystem. So we
Got it.
kind of build this, we help them grow, and we ensure that the ecosystem is also growing along with this, and we also benefit from this. Yes.
Got it. Um, so JLL. So this is JLL Asia. Is there JLL? Sorry, Idea Labs in JLL Asia, right? Are there Idea Labs in different parts of the world?
Yes, they are in different forms and factors. Yes, in
Got it.
different parts of the world as well.
And say for JLL Asia, how many startups are we talking about as part of Idea Labs today? How many have gone through this rigor?
Oh, while a lot of we've seen about 300 odd startups under our radar, we've inspected them, and today we are working with about 40. And
Wow.
yesterday was our demo day as well. So we've
Wow. I
onboarded
see.
6 more startups yesterday that
Oh,
we
wow.
believe that can add value to our business. So it
Bro.
keeps growing that way. Yeah, it takes some time for us. 3 months is the time that they spend, both of us spend. But once after that, there is a huge growth story that we can both expect out of this.
So the demo day happens after the 3 months gestation.
Yes, that's the final output that is arrived out of this. Yes.
And what happens in a typical demo day? Who are the attendees, and what's the dynamic like?
So that's an interesting question. So in a demo day, you have access to the entire JLL West Asia leadership. So you have
Mm,
different department leads sitting there, different business leads sitting there. So they bring in their perspective and they say, okay, this is nice. I want to take this over to my client. I want to work this out for the problem that I am trying to solve. So that's how it shapes up from there. So it's the entire JLL ecosystem of 650 million square feet, West Asia.
and of all the startups who participate in the demo day, how many get filtered to the next stage where they are actually being funded to for go to market?
Oh, interesting. So, from the West Asia ecosystem, there have been about 3 startups which have been funded.
Right.
But today, Idea Labs is more like a go-to-market channel partner. While we are looking at startups, we can that can come onto the growth stage and where we can invest into them as well.
Okay, okay. Sorry. Just to clarify, so they are not getting funded as part of Idea Labs. They are just getting partners for go to market. It's not a funding around there, so they have to self fund their startups. Is that how it is?
Yeah, they have to do business the regular way
Got it.
through this initiative. But
Got it.
once we see some value, this becomes like a seal on the paper, right? I mean, Idea Labs has been engaging with this because when Idea Labs engages, the entire JLL leadership of West Asia has looked at it. So
Got it.
that's kind of a validation of the startup, and which sometimes can become very interesting for our VC fund as well.
Got it. And what's the arrangement with you and the startups? Do they have to shell out equity as part of this help from you, to support from you? Is that how it is, or how
No,
does
we
it?
don't. We don't take any equity from these startups. It is just
Oh,
the commitment of time and the agreement on deliverables, and we just do this. So we don't. It's while I say it's a virtual accelerator, we don't take any equity into these startups. So for us, it is about how many startups have we been able to mature out of this ecosystem. How many
wow.
startups have we been able to validate and move ahead with this? See, what we believe is, like I was telling you, right? JLL, it is a strong ethos for us.
Hmm.
If the ecosystem has to grow, all of us have to grow, and that's a symbiotic relationship that we have with the startups
So
that
you
we
have
work.
you have no direct stake into the company. That means you are not getting any value back for the support, for this massive support that you're offering these startups.
We don't take equity, but there is a value back. We are solving a problem.
Yeah, yeah,
I
I
don't
understand.
think
That's yeah. I mean, that's the
that.
generosity aspect of it. Okay, so I get that, but okay, great. This I never knew about such a thing, but thank you
No.
for clarifying. That is the biggest aha moment for me. Um, Excellent. So do you want to shed some light on some of the interesting successes? I'm sure there are many, but do you want to highlight a couple of them which have been really good delighters that have come from this exercise from Idea Labs?
Oh, yes, there is one that I want to talk about, which is part technology, part inclusivity, a part of sustainability. It was a unique three combinations that we found in this one startup, which was focusing on femtech,
Ah,
which
okay.
is so we, as I was telling you, right, JLL believes that we have to drive this ecosystem. While we do that, we also realize that the future is going to be inclusive. It has to be inclusive. It was inclusive. It has to be inclusive. We need to put more and more focus into it. So we wanted to understand what are those aspects that we can work upon, which can drive inclusivity. And one of those initiatives was us looking at in the maintenance phase. We also have these sanitary pads which are generated,
Hmm.
used sanitary pads. So we were looking at a problem there is because today globally the two solutions for it is you either dump it or you incinerate it.
Hmm.
Both of this are not environmental friendly, and I
Hmm.
was when I was building the theses, the kind of carbon impact that would have was mind blowing,
Hmm.
and nobody is able to look at it is because there is no solution to it, or rather
Hmm.
nobody looked at it. So we identified a startup which was solving it for us. We've started working with them, and just after their graduation, it's been about 4 months now. They've already clocked about a few, I think close to $1 million in PO, and they are gearing up to go to the next million in the next by the end of this year in terms of
But
PO
wait,
value.
okay, I need to step in here. You mentioned about femtech. This has got nothing to do with real estate.
It has got to do a lot with real estate.
How's
we
it?
are building we are building real estate for the occupants who are staying inside it, right?
Yeah, but in that case, everything is real estate.
Yes, that's the beauty of real estate, and that's the reason everybody speaks about real estate for sustainability, right? We contribute to about 60 odd percentage for the entire carbon footprint because everything happens within a building.
No, no.
Everything
See,
is built.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I can order food and have plastic at home, and I dispose it. Would you call it as a real estate a sustainability problem, or it is a consumption problem of humanity that they are consuming plastic? I mean, I'm just trying to understand. I'm a
No, no,
newbie here.
makes
I'm
sense.
just using common sense. Yeah.
Makes sense. That's a good question, in fact. So let me flip the question a little more. So, say both of us are having food at an office space.
Hmm.
We ordered in food. There's plastic coming in.
Right.
How do we bell that cat now? Somebody has to bell that cat of the plastic being disposed of into the environment.
Right.
So it becomes a real estate problem. So all of these are part of our commitments towards sustainability.
Got it.
So,
Got it.
so this does get reported under your sustainability metrics as well.
Got it.
So the
Excellent.
plastic discharge from your operations, we are responsible for it as well. So that's why
Excellent.
it got us in, exciting, because we're able to create an inclusive environment
Right.
for the women who will be working in these buildings.
Right.
We are also able to drive sustainability through this, is because this startup, now we are able to completely zero off the carbon footprint. Those used sanitary pads are disinfected, and then they're turned into different other products which can
Nice.
be reused. It's almost like a circular economy there. So you're capturing all of that carbon and not letting them lie there and create impact, for the future generations. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. That was quite enlightening. Do you have one more?
So this is one. The other startup that has gone out of this have been able to scale up to the UK. So that's the another advantage that we bring, right? We have uh, offices everywhere. We do business in every other country where
Right.
it is possible. So while we were able to validate this product here, we were able to build a business case, and now we realized, okay, the startup wanted to travel elsewhere, so we were able to give them opportunities across our global footprint as well, right?
Nice.
Which wouldn't have been easier if you as a founder have to do it. Not saying it's impossible, it is possible,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it would have been a lot more difficult for you. But then there is a structured program that we have, so you're now able to access the entire global ecosystem of JLL, and that's the benefit that we were able to give out to the other startup that we've been working on. Yeah.
Got it. So when you compare the startups for Idea Labs and JLL Spark, is there a marked difference in the number of startups that are invested through JLL Spark? I'm sure JLL Spark has a much bigger portfolio of startups. Am I right? And
Yes, they.
and also just like Idea Labs has Idea Labs Asia, does JLL Spark also work regionally?
We do engage a lot more, yes, because there is always an overlap of strategy. We do work together. We bounce off ideas of each other. So how we align is, all of us, while we are different departments and names to it, but we all align to one goal, which is people, planet, and profits. So that's
Got it.
where our teams align. So that's where our startups are also mostly aligned as well.
So is there a JLL Spark Asia also?
We don't have Asia; it's a global division as such. But yes, we have individuals looking at different regions as well.
Got it. Got it. So if
Yeah.
if JLL Spark needs to invest into startups, there will be a regional office that is looking into startups in that space.
It's not a regional office, so you have regional folks. They're part of the business, so
Right.
we identify, and it takes that route. Yeah.
If there is a startup from Singapore,
Hmm.
so if they have to get themselves backed by JLL, they have to apply for JLL Spark. How do they go? They go to JLL Spark Global, and then
Yeah,
somehow
they
they will
could.
be okay. They will
They
be
will be.
channeled. Okay.
There are hands behind those servers who are
Got it.
actively screening each of those applications, and if
Got
they fall into our theses that we are looking at, yes, JLL Spark will be able to connect with you and understand what your startup means to us, and they would go ahead with those decisions.
So
Yes.
if a startup from JLL Idea begins to get traction and they need funding for growth, they can apply at JLL Spark. Is that how it is?
So that would be an interesting situation if we are able to see the kind of growth that we expect out of that, and we see it as matching our strategy and aligning to our theses. Then Idea Labs ourselves, we can recommend these for funds.
Got it.
And since it's going from Idea Labs, it's a lot more validated for our VC partners as well. So they get a lot more excited about this, and we have those conversations.
Got it. So for Idea Labs itself, what is your screening? What kind of an ideology you have for picking startups into the Idea Labs? Like what kind of founders, what kind of ideas do you back?
Yeah. So from an Idea Lab perspective, why we have five large themes that we focus on. So we look at startups which can align to our themes. So the themes that we focus on is sustainability, improving operations, driving an inclusive workplace, uh, improving occupant experience,
Mhm.
and off late we've also looked at another angle, which is computer vision specifically, because a lot is happening in that space, and we want to see how this will be able to impact real estate as well.
Okay. Computer vision.
Yes.
Did it happen after the Vision Pro release from Facebook?
No, no, this happened to us about
No,
two and a half years ago.
from Apple. Sorry.
Yeah. No, no, this happened to us 2.5 years ago.
Okay.
So we've been able to see a lot of traction in that space. We
But what does
see.
computer vision mean? Could you? I'm just curious about it.
Yeah, so computer vision is basically the same camera technology, which is but it's on a sensor, so
Mm,
that we're able to monitor how the space is being utilized or different use cases that we have, and all of the data now is anonymously sent back for analytics. Because the
got
minute it's a camera, it becomes a lot more open to questions around data and privacy, right? Because it's pushing all of those images to the cloud, which we don't want to do. That's the reason we look at startups specifically who can help us just push those analytics, which has got some level of edge computing, so that they're able to capture an image or look at a particular scenario and drive insights based on certain triggers, and then just pass on those metadata onto the cloud, and we're able to drive insights, analytics, or even take actions on top of those findings as well.
got it. So you mentioned about these themes. So any proposal that comes your way based on these themes get automatically approved, or are there further filters in terms of, okay, who the founders is, how strong the
Yes. So while the themes come on board, that's where the Innovation Council kicks in. We look at the stage of the startup as well. While we don't deny any startup, if it is, at least the POC stage, it becomes a lot more easier for us to give them the experience of the go-to market that we can offer. So that's where we look at it. We look at how it is, what is the functionality, how is it built, is it enterprise ready, and then we take on to the further steps.
got it. And does it, just like other accelerators, have a specific time frame where people join in a cohort and then they're part of the accelerator program? Is that how it is, or it is devoid of any time frame constraint?
See, we do have our cohorts that we focus on, but we do take on, because we have an open door policy for startups coming in, because we don't want to let go of disruption which could happen.
Right.
So we do bring on startups on ad hoc basis as well.
Right.
While the cohort is already running, we see how this falls into the existing cohort,
Right.
because we are sorted with our themes. We only have 5 themes, so
Hmm.
any startup has to be into that journey itself. So then we take them along if it is really exciting for us, and then we take them to the next processes.
Excellent. I ran out of my questions. Is there anything else I should be asking you that I have not asked? If not, my last question here is, being a leader on this space, what has been your biggest learnings, and where do you see the next year or two for Idea Labs Asia evolving? So maybe learnings and then a future roadmap would be good to know.
Yeah. So today, the biggest learnings that we've seen is the way the market is evolving itself is a learning for us, right? The past two dreaded years have changed a lot in terms of how business is being dealt upon.
Hmm.
So that's where it becomes a lot more interesting for us. So we have our learnings on that. So we also have a lot of learning in terms of how we structure our program as well. So that's the reason we're able to put that 3I approach. We have a 7-step framework right now. So all of that is kind of bringing a structure to this whole program. We are
Right.
able to build quality point of view on top of this. And
Hmm.
what we see as a future for Idea Labs, we see working with more and more startups. That's what we see for ourselves. But from an industry perspective, we see a lot of focus moving towards climate change.
Hmm.
While it is always an impact space,
Right.
uh, but commercializing is a concern. We are also working with the startups on that front, but we
Right.
do actively engage in uh, you know startups which can help us solve in terms of waste, water, energy consumption, because these are things that is very important for us.
Hmm.
So a lot of our focus is going ahead and getting engaged with these kind of startups. We
Right.
also are working with startups who can help us uh, optimize how businesses are run, because
Hmm.
globally organizations are, any real estate firm or occupants, they're all moving towards what is called dynamicity of how things were done. Previously, we had standard operating procedures or processes through which it would be done. But now it is becoming a lot more of can it be demand based, right? So we are looking at startups who can join us in that journey. Yeah.
Got it. Excellent. What's your next year, 2 years plan from here?
So the next 2 year plan for us is to be able to start aligning a lot of our startups to our own SDG commitments as well, because then it's got a lot more purpose. Because
Got it.
most of our SDGs also align to our clientele, our partner SDGs as well. So that's where our goals are. We are looking at growing this cohort. We are also looking at increasing our global footprint as well. So we want to create a channel where more and more global startups can start exploring India,
Got it.
because India is changing how it is. So it has become the epicenter of most of innovation today. And
Got
it's
it.
easier for us to run tests here, build theses. And in fact, I was talking to one of the leaders yesterday from the US, where it was really evident that you try test a model in India today because of its global outlook and also the kind of clientele that you have here. You have clientele from every part of the world here. So when it gets tried and tested here, you almost get the flavor of every region and you're able
Right.
to scale it in different parts of the world easily.
Excellent. Well, this brings us to the end of a very interesting conversation with Abhishek. Abhishek, thank you for taking time out and giving us insights into what happens into JLL's very famed Idea Lab. And without this conversation, many of us would not know, and it would actually encourage a lot of young listeners who might have an idea and approach you. If they were to approach you, what is the best place for them to get in touch with you?
It would be the email address. You could just reach out to my email, or you could reach out to anybody in the JLL West Asia ecosystem. You know somebody in JLL West Asia, anybody, and they would direct you to Idea Labs, because everybody in JLL West Asia know what Idea Labs is, and that becomes a lot more easier for you to join us and approach us as well.
Okay, I will also link Abhishek's LinkedIn profile on the description below this video so that it's easy for you to find him. Excellent, Abhishek. Again, thank you so much for your time and sharing with us the wealth of knowledge and wisdom that you had.
Thanks, Ravi. Thanks for having me on the show. More than wealth and wisdom, it was a good chat with you, trying to share about what we do at Idea Labs and know more about PropTech Buzz as well. Thanks, Ravi.